welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a truly lost philosophical treasure. We're going to explore ancient Syriac literature to uncover a profound, centuries-old cure for something almost all of us feel every single day: modern spiritual exhaustion. We live in this age of absolutely unprecedented material wealth, but at the same time, we're seeing a massive deficit in our inner peace. The source material we're unpacking today gives us a deeply fascinating framework for not just understanding that exhaustion, but actually curing it.
It's a crazy modern paradox, right? As a civilization, we can build these massive skyscrapers, we engineer mind-blowing robotics, we're literally planning to establish life on other planets. Yet despite all of this incredible external production, we are internally plagued by this undeniable spiritual emptiness and deep mental exhaustion. We've completely engineered the world around us, but somehow, somewhere along the way, we completely forgot how to engineer a meaningful, connected life for our own minds.
Section 1. An ancient healing concept.
So, to answer that huge question of why we're so exhausted, we're actually turning away from modern self-help and looking way back to the rich vocabulary of Syriac literature. Unlike a lot of our modern languages that sometimes just don't have the nuance to describe diseases of the soul, this ancient literature has long prescribed specific remedies for the toxic thought patterns that poison our daily lives. They absolutely understood that the mind needs medicine just as much as the body does. And the key to all of this is understanding the term Şumloyo. In the Syriac tradition, Şumloyo is a powerful concept of spiritual evolution, maturation, and completion. But here's the kicker. It's not just a passive state of Zen. It's an active antidote to the mental illusions and feelings of worthlessness that drag us down. It basically teaches us that the ultimate cure for our inner emptiness isn't found by looking inward and obsessing over ourselves, but by actively urging ourselves to serve and complete the people around us.
Section 2. Şumloyo, completion and evolution.
So what does Şumloyo actually look like as a blueprint for our daily lives? Well, it's definitely not just abstract theology. It's entirely about moving us from being isolated takers to becoming interconnected givers. It's this realization that true personal evolution only happens when we step outside of our own ego and participate in the completion of others. And what's super interesting is that modern social scientists actually completely agree with this ancient logic. We know for a fact now that anyone trying to do absolutely everything alone simply cannot succeed. But it goes even deeper than that. Failing to use our personal power to help others actually breeds immense internal tension. When we sit alone, with unlimited time focused purely on ourselves, our unused potential literally eats away at us. But the second we use that potential for the benefit of others, it instantly brings this deep, lasting peace.
Section 3. Nature's law of mutual need.
This whole concept of mutual completion, it's actually woven into the very fabric of the universe. It is the fundamental operating system of the natural world itself. Just think about these vivid metaphors drawn straight from the ancient text. The sun doesn't rise to warm itself up, right? It rises to give life to the earth. A tree doesn't yield fruit so it can have a snack. It produces fruit to nourish others. Even the organs inside your own body don't operate for their own isolated glory. They exist solely to support, feed, and complete one another. Literally nothing in nature lives for its own ego. And as humans, we are meant to operate by that exact same law.
Listen closely to this remarkable piece of wisdom from the 4th century, from Saint Maur Ephrem. He beautifully expands on that biological metaphor. He explains that just as body parts desperately need each other to function, our mutual need for one another in society should be a massive source of harmony. It basically means that those in power, the great ones, should recognize their dependence on everyday people. And that realization shouldn't cause any shame. Instead, it should naturally create a profound sense of humility. And St. Maur Basilius backs this right up by stating it a simple, undeniable fact. Complete isolation is impossible. None of us can survive, let alone thrive, entirely on our own. We inherently require each other. So trying to withdraw into total seclusion and live only for yourself, that's just a complete rejection of reality. We are hardwired for connection, and denying that is only going to lead to suffering. Section 4. The darkness of ego. The logic of Şu'loyo. Okay, but every profound philosophy has an antagonist, right? And here it's Şu'loyo, the isolating darkness of the ego. If Şumloyo is the light of interconnectedness, Şu'loyo is the exact opposite, and it is the root cause of that spiritual exhaustion we talked about at the very beginning. The physiological effects of contrasting these two paths are honestly staggering. Şumloyo expands your soul. It's driven by humility, and modern science actually shows this releases endorphins in your brain through positive social connection. On the flip side, we have Şu'loyo, driven by ego, pride, and this constant need to dominate. It totally isolates you. Operating in this state triggers the release of acidic stress chemicals. It raises your blood pressure, generates fear, and breeds aggression. It quite literally makes you sick. The source text is so descriptive here, it actually refers to the ego, this Şu'loyo, as a mental parasite. Just like a physical parasite drains a healthy body, this ego-driven logic feeds on our thoughts. It wears the clothes of selfishness and speaks the language of pure arrogance. By trapping us in low-frequency motivations, things like jealousy, greed, and that desperate need to feel superior, it completely wrecks our social development and alienates us from the exact people we need in order to be complete.
So, how in the world do we fight this mental parasite? Well, Mor Yaqub, an ancient master, drops this incredible truth. He who sows ignorance reaps misery. The absolute best antidote to the ego is the pursuit of truth and wisdom. We have a profound responsibility to enrich our minds through education and positive exchange with others. If we just let ourselves stay ignorant of how interconnected we all are, we're basically choosing a life of misery.
Section 5. The Second Birth and Wisdom.
Okay, so how do we actually make the transition from this toxic ego to that beautiful, interconnected wisdom? The ancient texts suggest it requires a totally new way of existing, what they call a second birth. The great 13th century master Bar Hebraeus uses this stunning metaphor to explain it. He says we must wash away the mud before we can drink from the pure spring. And that mud, that represents our ego, our prejudices, our arrogance, and all our toxic conditioning. You simply cannot experience the pure water of spiritual maturity and true connection if your cup is still caked with the dirt of selfishness.
The text maps this transformation out as a clear three-step journey. We all start with our biological first birth, which brings us into the material world where it's so easy to feel separate and vulnerable. But to truly live, we have to absolutely shatter the illusion of the independent, isolated ego. Only by doing that can we achieve our second birth. It's a spiritual awakening where our inner eyes finally open up and we recognize our deep, unbreakable connection to the whole.
And there's this fantastic, slightly more modern analogy in the analysis that brilliantly illustrates our exact place in the universe. Think of divine will or the universal operating system as an electrical current. We humans are just the light bulbs. The shape, the size, the brand of the light bulb, which is basically our individual status, wealth, or job title, it completely does not matter. The bulb is totally useless on its own. We only shine, we only actually produce light when we are actively connected to that greater current of community and shared purpose.
This lines up so perfectly with the ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who is referenced in the text, to really drive this point home. He basically noted that we often get it entirely backwards. We are not just biological humans who occasionally have a fleeting spiritual thought. We are, at our very core, spiritual beings who are currently just going through a temporary human experience. Remembering this completely shifts how we value ourselves and, more importantly, how we treat the people around us.
But here is the catch. As the text points out, drawing on the wisdom of thinkers like Goethe, simply knowing all this theory just isn't enough. You can understand Şumloyo perfectly in your head, but without action, it's kind of useless. We have to actively transform this knowledge into wisdom. That means conscious cooperation, it means proactive service, it means literally waking up every single day and intentionally looking for ways to serve and complete the people around us, rather than always trying to compete with them.
We really owe this incredibly profound synthesis of ancient philosophy and modern application to Yusuf Bektash. He did the careful, heavy lifting of decoding these ancient Syriac concepts, translating them not just into modern language, but into a real framework that we can actually use. His ultimate goal in sharing the wisdom of Şumloyo is to help us overcome our modern spiritual exhaustion by teaching us how to build bridges of understanding instead of walls of ego.
I want to leave you with one final, super provocative thought from Bar Hebraeus to carry with you today. It's a question that just cuts right through the noise of our busy lives. He asks, if you take the time to diligently wash the physical dirt from your body every single day, why do you not take the time to wash the toxic dirt of ego and selfishness from your soul? Think about how you can practice Şumloyo today and start washing away that mud. Until next time, keep learning and keep connecting.